This is Critical Listening, episode 15. My name is Liz Pelly, and on this episode, I'm joined by my co-host Max Alper and our guest, the guitarist, songwriter, and improviser Wendy Eisenberg. We were so excited to have Wendy on the show. They joined us a few weeks before the release of their new self-titled album, which is out now. In the first half of the show, we speak with Wendy about their own work as a musician and a teacher. We talk about the new album, the music communities they are a part of, and also some headier stuff like their thoughts on virtuosity and hooks. It was a super interesting conversation. In the second half of the show, we're debuting a new series called Listening Habits, where we talk to musicians and musicers about how they actually listen to music on an everyday basis. So that could mean the formats and media and platforms they might use to access and discover music, but also what they're listening for and in which contexts they find themselves listening the most deeply. It was really exciting to get to launch that series, having such a deep convo with Wendy. A quick note that throughout this episode, there are several mentions of Wendy's collaborators on their new record, including Mari Rubio, Trevor Dunn, and Ryan Sawyer. So if you hear some references to first names without explanation, it is usually one of them. Thanks for listening.
All right. Welcome, folks. It's Critical Listening. I don't know, episode 15 probably when this comes out. It's episode whatever you want it to be. Time is a flat circle.
We're not mathematicians over here.
That's right. That's
you
right.
Expect us to keep track of numbers.
I don't know how to read. I don't know how to write. I don't know how to count. I know how to count notes, pitches. That's it.
Nice.
With
Keeping
us
it
today.
Bravado.
That's right. With us today, we got ourselves a doozy. We have composer, guitarist, educator, all around cool person coming in from the home studio this morning. We have Wendy Eisenberg.
Thank you so much for being here. We definitely want to talk about your new record, which by the time this podcast is live, your new record will have been out, the self-titled Wendy Eisenberg record on Joyful Noise, and a bit about your teaching practice, perhaps. And then in the second half, we're excited to talk to you a bit about your personal listening habits.
I'm so excited for that. That's like way more exciting. I mean, I love my record, but I love listening to music. Probably more, definitely more.
We're going to try to make it a common segment on the second halves of our discussions with folks of asking a common set of listening habit questions because, Liz has said many times, people always ask like, I don't know where to get music if I don't want to go on Spotify. And it's like, might be obvious to folks like us, but it actually really isn't that obvious. So we need to be providing those alternatives, and we want to know where the heavy hitters go.
Okay. I can help. I hope I can help.
So wanted to just get into the record, but more importantly, like how you cultivate your multiple facets of sound here. I had just seen actually last weekend, I went and saw Tyshawn Story and Cooper Moore perform in a duo for the first time up here in Poughkeepsie. And Cooper Moore was his mentor like 30 years ago. And he said it was a pivotal moment when Cooper told Tyshawn, you're not just a drummer, you're a composer. And I've never viewed you, Wendy, as just a guitarist. I feel like you have so many different masks or hats that you enjoy wearing. And the guitar may be just a vehicle for these hats. You veer into various categories, including just a straight ahead cat in an ensemble, on the six strings. You're a free improviser and collaborator with many different folks. You're a bandmate to many formal projects such as Editrix, Wait, or Hoyt, as I like to call it. Squanderers. I was just listening to my Squanderers LP that I purchased from you at Avalon Lounge when I saw y'all play. Fantastic trio. And a bunch of other projects I probably don't even know about. Um, and you just released another collection of sort of experimental art song, experimental folk. I don't know what we're gonna call it. Music with lyrics, and guitar and instruments, and things like
You
that.
can say songs. It's okay.
Songs are cool, exactly. Yeah. So quite simply, I'm just curious, how are you able to really put in serious priority for everything? I think for a lot of musicians it's hard to do one project. So how do you do X number of things?
Well, it's a really flattering question, first of all. Thank you.
I try.
I mean, I think like probably honestly the fear that I might be a hack is like a thing that keeps me honest. So like if I'm in an ensemble, I think I like to think I'm as motivated by the pursuit of what art has like to try to recapture what art has made me feel as I am by like trying to make people happy. So when I'm a collaborator, I want to treat it as seriously as I treat my own work. And that's an insanely fastidious way to live. So I'm pretty beat. I don't know. I think that when I don't lose sight of why I make music, like the thing that I'm reminded of for why is always like it's interesting and it makes me feel like nothing else can make me feel. And so I don't want to limit that. Like I don't want to limit the different ways that music can work its magic on me. And I'm lucky enough to be so conversant on the guitar and also like hopefully as conversant one day in other things like singing and keyboard and stuff because like um being able to feel like the magic in different kind of scenarios makes you I don't know, it puts you closer to like what that magic feels like every day. Whereas I think if I was more of a specialist, like I might be privy to some sort of like magic that now I'm not because I'm just kind of like zooming around doing my thing. But like I imagine like the early music traditionalists probably feel some sort of like connection with some version of humanity that's like I don't know, on the level but on a different plane than like what I'm experiencing. But this is just a long-winded way of saying like I'm interested in music. I like how it makes me feel and it's like I can risk the perpetual burnout that I feel for the sake of the thing that makes me feel connected with the forces of the universe.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. The burnout is what I wanted to just hint I was hinting at with the question here.
I mean, the burnout thing is I think less of a it's less music's fault than it is like the things that it takes to support a career in music. The compromises and the things that lead to burnout are like the nature of industry itself, not just the music industry, where like you can't just like have a shitty job in the same way that you once were able to and then like be a musician and do like
Right.
all the like I made it work in Western Mass. Like the reason that I live there is because my rent was never over like $500, which is like I
Nice.
don't think possible anymore. And
Yeah.
I feel like kind of one of the last people who experienced that in some ways because like I think about my students and like their rent is pretty close to my rent, which I don't really feel like disclosing, but it's just like,
It ain't good.
it ain't good, it's too damn high. But, I think I could work like a couple days teaching private students at a very low rate and then just like learn how to write songs. And that's because I like made the choice not to move to a major urban center until COVID actually. And I
Mm.
was, or except for, I mean, Boston, I was just throwing shade on Boston, but like my
Yeah,
rent
it's
was more
not a
expensive in
major
Boston.
urban. It pretends to be a major urban center. It costs like one, but it's not. Come on.
It's also like more architecturally beautiful until it isn't.
Right. Right.
But um, with love and respect to Boston, whose DIY scene is, I don't know, it's why I'm here
Dead.
probably. It's dead, but
Dead. It's
when
dead.
it was around,
R.I.P.
it
When
was
it was
awesome.
around, it was beautiful for all three of us here, but it is.
But we do have love for Boston though.
I mean, I'm making a point that I'm sure that I know that each of you have considered greatly, which is like when you have time and cheap rent and a job that doesn't totally suck your mind out, you can kind of do anything. And I think that like living like that in my 20s made it possible for me to like have the habits that like now I can do all of these different things at the same time. And I remember when I was first coming up getting like talking to the piano player Matt Mitchell a lot, who's a hero, remains a hero of mine because he can do things that I can't do. And that's always, I mean, there's many things that I can't do, but he can really do them. And he said like the three things that you need to like have a career that doesn't like suck your life out is like a sustenance job, friends, and like time.
Mm.
And like I feel like sustenance job, like a lot of those things are at risk. Like time is the thing that we give to people. Like time is the thing that makes us bring our phones from room to room, like our fear of it, whatever. And like music as this kind of rarefied thing that helps you decorate time, like, or just like exposes time to itself, you know, you can focus on that when you have a healthy relationship with time, which I don't think our capitalist overlords or our pleasure seeking selves always want to remember.
Man, he's just spitting right now.
It's the morning, dog. I'm like, this is my second day not drinking coffee in the morning, so I'm like really in touch with the spirits.
Damn.
What are you
Crazy.
drinking?
Drinking pu'er tea.
All right. Got something, some caffeine, but it's not
Oh
the
yeah,
real.
no, I'm not.
Nice.
You're in withdrawal. You're having the shakes. That's you're hallucinating. That's why you're spitting holistic psychedelic knowledge on us right now.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Yeah.
Talking to your students, I'm sure, who have, just as expensive, if not more expensive rent than you because they got a newer lease if they're freshmen or whatever. What like would you like tell them like seek out your Western Mass equivalent post grad? I always tell folks like it's like if you're in a small city and you're in a small scene and making it happen, like don't feel the itch to get out of there immediately, like see what you could do there. And I feel like what the New York City of at least my college years, it doesn't exist the same way. And it makes me wonder, like, is it all that, if there are places where you can have one small job and teach casually and, you know, grind on the music to your heart's content?
Yeah, I mean, I do tell my students that I'm like, if you don't love New York, like that's okay. Like a lot of people don't. I really do. It's I always think it's pretty funny that I lived in Western Mass for 3 years and like didn't date any women. And then I like moved here and I feel like infinitely better being gay for some reason here. But so I think that I mean, there's obvious reasons.
For those that know that this is an ironic statement, they will know that this is an ironic statement.
Yes, Western Mass, the I-91 lesbian slash noise corridor. But like I think that like the touring DIY when I did or when I do, as I do, a really great way to see what commitment to a small scene can look like, especially because like a lot of the same bookers just keep kind of grinding at it. Like I think about Jason Treffs in Boston or, you know, just so many people. You know, keeping a smaller scene alive is what makes like experimental music possible. And it makes like traveling America, even in its continual indignity, like actually worth it because you can just see. I mean, I like the fruits of commitment. I'm intrigued by longer form projects. Like I do a lot, but like I kind of do a lot with the same people usually. And like it's or at least it feels like I will in the future. Who knows if it's newer. But Editrix is like 8 years old, you know, like
Yeah.
and this new record, like Mari and Ryan are close, like super close friends. And you know, but I've been working with Trevor on and off since like 2018. So like I like to roll deep, you know, and I think
Mhm.
that when you see these small scenes, you see what the fruits of that look like, which might not be like, oh wow, look at this, I don't know, 3D printed gorgeous concert hall or whatever. But it is like, you know, here's like a guy who knows how to host you, who has like 6 birds and wants to tell you all about Satanism, and then you learn like about Satanism, but also what it looks like to live in like Michigan and feel good. And you know, these people care, and like I think it's in a bigger city, like there's so many amazing things about it. Like you can see like Ikwe Mori and Brian Chase and Yuka Honda play the Stone randomly. Like it's just like a total gift. But you know, there's also a gift to like being the person who's like, hey, you can come out here and do that, like in Dubuque or whatever. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
and I think that like when music gets just siloed into cities, like it breeds resentment and it also like makes those cities feel really saturated. And if you're like coming up and you're one of my students, so you're like in your 20s, maybe you're like 30s or something, which is insane to teach somebody my age, but it's been done. Like you feel, or older, my gosh. But when you're like coming up and you haven't like established yourself in some way that's recognizable to you as established, like it's kind of nice to have a place that's like less all eyes are on you if they are than a major city. And also like maybe you have you can just teach people in that town how you learn to make music or like, and then they can fight you and then all of a sudden a scene happens, you know. It's
Yeah. I think that's a really good segue into a question that I wanted to ask. I was doing some
Yes.
research this morning and I saw that in the fall you're teaching a class at the new school called How to Be Ahead about theorizing musical community. And firstly, okay, wow, would love to take that class. And I wanted to ask you, you know, how your own participation in music scenes has influenced your work, but maybe before we get there, just like what does it mean to you to be ahead in a world that completely devalues music?
yeah, I mean, I think it means that you're a champion for love and not commerce, you know, like even though music is kind of like perfume, it's this like ephemeral thing that's just a commercial thing to some people, but is the way that they understand themselves to another person, you know. It's an adornment, but it's also like something deeper. It's a performance, but it's not an act, all these great things. But what it means to me to be ahead is that you're trying to maybe not protect a legacy exactly, but like to try to find the thing that was beautiful about an age that the age didn't recognize, or that the standards for its beauty weren't like codified by. Like I think it's so easy to like look back in the way that maybe we were taught American history and hear about like the Belle Epoque or something, which is French, but like you could hear about like times and be like, yeah, well, this is when this artist was doing this, or like here's a cursory understanding of art history. Here's like the blue period of Picasso or whatever. I don't know why I'm going so European. Who cares? But like you kind of look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this is the Gilded Age. This is when people would gild stuff, you know. But like I think it's really important to see like what was happening that was totally ignored because usually, and this is also kind of, you can problematize this pretty easily, but like you can look at the thing that you find and be like, this is so exceptional. And I hear traces of it in this strain of contemporary, whatever. So it's kind of an ulterior understanding of, or just alternate understanding of history. We're like learning about the ambitious lovers, let's say, by like Arto Lindsay, which I was like, I am always
Yeah.
into, but like studying the trajectories of Arthur Lindsay and Peter Scherer and then seeing how they like went and produced 90s Caetano Veloso records and like seeing that there's like this cross-cultural link that's both because of like Arto's history but also because of the globalization of a certain synthetic sound at the time. It's not like just for the pleasure of making theory about like why they were just like hanging out like across Brazil and US and extrapolating politically thereof. It's just that music is always this force where the community doesn't totally recognize nationalist boundaries, but also the sounds that some nation might like become the representation of that nation.
Mm.
Like, and I think that when you're ahead, you're listening to music because you just like are thirsty for the thing that will make you feel alive the same way you did when you first heard like Thin Lizzy or something. Like you're just trying to, it's like you're questing for another high or something. But then there's this other element of it where it's like, why is it that like one narrative of the high is like the narrative that then defines an era? Like why, like what was happening outside of CBGB, if anything, or like what was happening in Atlanta at that time, you know, which is, or like Athens, like B-52s or something.
Yeah.
Like, so if you start looking away from like the narrative that you're read, like, and you fall into what might have been happening like right next door, then the world is so much broader. And like you can actually start to imagine a more expansive musical history or like a musical wellspring. And I think a lot of the times, like being ahead or like hanging out with older music that like feels forgotten can turn into this sort of colonialist pursuit where it's like I'm the one who discovered this, look at me having discovered this, which that's the problematizing thing.
Right.
But it's so important, I think, to like try to find the things that have been forgotten because first of all, like I have a tender heart and I just want to like find forgotten things like in a Velveteen Rabbit type way. And like two, it just might be beautiful, it might be the thing that makes you inspired. And you know, if we only have so much time, why not decorate it with something that might surprise you, you know?
Mm-hmm. So it seems like almost sort of a way of approaching music history through like digging for deeper social history and social context that isn't part of a dominant narrative of how you understand a time. So I
Perfectly
guess
put.
like
Yeah.
what are some of the tools that you like suggest for sort of like digging into a deeper social history of a time in music that, you know, might not be part of how we understand it?
Well, I mean, I think the research methods that I use are like kind of primitive. You know, I'm like trying to find Web 1.0 versions of zines or just like actually zines themselves and going to libraries and stuff like zine libraries and at like DIY spaces and finding it, but also just talking to people. You know, when I talk to like old heads from like I don't know, Sheffield or whatever, they're gonna just know bands that are like amazing and you won't know them, and maybe maybe the head is really annoying. Like probably as a head who's annoying, like maybe the head is really
Punisher.
annoying. Yeah, but I think a Punisher is talking to you to talk, and I think like real heads are about sharing.
Hmm.
Like that's like I mean, it sucks to be like there's good heads and bad heads, which is kind of I think what I'm implying. But like I don't mean to be. I think everybody who's like trying to seek out interesting music in this protective way is just like they love music, but talking to them about what's going on in like I don't know Ypsilanti in like 1981, you know, I don't really know that offhand, but like there's that guy with the birds that I could call, and like
Right.
just if I'm curious, and like when you're thinking about that, it's like a nice way to not think about um, the contemporary downward trajectory as closely, but also as a way to think about how other people dealt with their own narratives of downward trajectories. Like I do feel like we're in like this kind of horrible moment in a lot of history. Like this is not a very bright or hopeful time exactly. So like one way that I can retain hope is seeing how these like ulterior music scenes sustain themselves when they were dealing with their own perception of this eschatology, you know.
Mm.
So it's really nice like so talking to people Web 1.0 zine libraries, but also like digging into the record reviews and magazines from like older periods. Like there's a lot of shit that's forgotten, even if it's ensconced in the history of a magazine or something, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is legitimizing. Like if you look at like Mari is always doing, she's always going into the wire and like looking at 1998 what was like the top 50 records, but also what were they reviewing. And it's like a lot of the things that they were reviewing, even if it's like not the kindest review or something, like that's shit that like probably is not being thought about. And because it's just so many years removed and people are like trying to figure out what's going on with this or that hype band right now, and like who knows if they'll last, but like they'll have like a maybe larger fonted footnote, but then like who's Chico Mello, what's he doing in like 2005, you know, and trying to
Yeah.
figure out like what I don't know. It's not exactly like because it's been forgotten, but because, you know, you don't know what's waiting to be heard. And so just kind of digging the things that are not given pride of place in the magazine, or like maybe my favorite, and this is from like being a jazz student at Eastman, like, or before then, certainly too, trying to find who all the side people are and what they did. And then you find
Yeah.
another alternate history where it's like, yeah, there's the Richard Davis of jazz records, but there's the Richard Davis that's on Astral Weeks, you know? And like so then you start to realize that the boundaries between genres is like kind of forged just by capital, and like it's people doing what they're interested in, but you know the context is always shifting, so trying to find out like where certain people want it to be and creating your like fun genealogies.
Hmm.
And it's fascinating because it's like, yeah, like these things like maybe like legacy or how familiar something sounds 30 years later, that might be defined by like capital or like what we consider like a commercial
Yeah,
success, right? Even in experimental music, right? But like we all have that one record that like I don't know 10 other people in the world have that like means the world to us, like shaped us as a person. It's like I matter and those nine other people matter and this record matters. And so it's like I'm always telling folks, it's like don't like try to measure like metrics. Obviously it's a bummer if like your Bandcamp premiere like didn't make like major waves or anything like that, but like those five people that like spent the $10, man, like you might have changed their life, and like that is
totally.
like they're changing their trajectory of a personal history. And like all this matters. I know it's very holistic and stuff, but it's true. Like what we're dealing with is both the material and magic,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm even like sitting here thinking the same thing when it comes to music writing too. It's like, it's so important to in real time be documenting the scene around you or that you're part of on a local level, or just like what you're interested in, even if it's not being read by like thousands and thousands of people. Like one
Yeah.
day someone might be looking back being like, I want to read about what, music writing was happening 20 years ago that no one was paying attention to. And, you're literally writing, people always say like journalists are writing the first draft of history. But, hearing someone like you, Wendy, say you're going in the wire and reading reviews that people have forgotten about from like 20 years ago, I think is like kind of speaks to that a little bit. Like it's a archival practice at a time when the corporations that are being entrusted to be like the stewards of the archive of popular music history are like completely failing that responsibility. So it really
Absolutely.
is kind of like on us to, I don't know, remember the importance of these like alternative ways of documenting what's happening around us.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is because, like, a lot of the reasons that I'm like this, like, just to echo what you're saying, are because I would find my dad's old, like, record collecting books, which he didn't really collect as far as I could tell from our collections, but, like, he had, like, the pretty encyclopedic knowledge of, like, when Beatles records came out and stuff. And, like, I think he
Mm.
got them from, like, having a great memory and, like, also reading these things or, like, Rolling Stone being, like, part of the monoculture, which, no shade, but, like, things have changed. And, like, I would go in like 2004 and like look at like the top 100 artists and stuff, and like it would be like people that I recognized as famous, but like I didn't know them because I was like 13. It's just like shit, like trying to find these things when I was young and trying to be like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And then you just get like you realize that they keep talking about the same 12 people or something, and it gets a little bit horrible. So then you look at like which rock journalists like essays you liked. So I got really into Ellen Willis, and in her like collected works, like she's talking so much about I know she's the best, but she's talking about like the band Joy of Cooking, which like no one's talking about now. No offense. And like that band rules and the songwriters of it are great, and it's like a specific kind of Bay Area thing that like I don't really understand as someone who's never even come close to living in the Bay. But hearing that, I hear this like history, and I hear this kind of like matriarchal rock band type sound, and it's like because of her ethos. And so you start to like follow these journalists outside of like the like most aggro male journalists and stuff, and you realize that there is this ulterior history. And I say ulterior because I do think it's motived, but like it's just a nice way to look at the world. And it also is respectful to writers, which like maybe it seems like I'm paying fealty because I'm talking to two great writers, but like, it is important. You are writing that draft. And like for teen shut-ins like me, like you want to know where to look. And if somebody has a good voice, it helps you want to look there.
Mhm. Well, it's just such a testament too to like following your curiosities, right? Because I do think that we also exist in a time where people sort of like, um, are like, oh, like nobody's writing about music anymore. Like it's so hard to like find new music, blah blah blah. But there's also I think been normalized this expectation that stuff is just going to come to you, and it's like
Yeah.
you have to be interested and you have to be curious and you have to like follow your curiosities and actually like read something and think like this is pretty good, like who wrote this, let me look up what else they've written. This record is good, who put this out, who played on it, like let me look up what else they played on, like what else this label has put out, like, and actually sort of be invested in that process of learning.
Yeah. And not to like grandstand here, but I think that that process of learning is like, it's, it's not capital R radical, but I do think it points to like a sense of personal agency and taste. Like I think when people receive things from the algorithm, they perceive powerlessness and finding like their own like maybe you can find like a further sad girl playlist that then has one artist that you like and then you listen to that artist, but that's like pretty passive. If you're just like that artist was, now they're on whatever such and such label, but before then they were on this smaller one. Who are the other artists there? Like that
Mm.
kind of puts you in the seat of like I'm digging for something because I want to see what people can do. And then that makes you remember that both the artists who maybe didn't get onto that sad girl playlist, like they still might have something totally amazing to say, but it's not so easily like quantifiable as sad girl music. And then all of a sudden maybe you're just like listening to home recording people from the 80s and 90s like Linda Smith because like somebody that was a contemporary of hers made it onto this like thing. So the algorithm can like point you in the direction, but it can only take you so far. But your curiosity can actually take you anywhere.
Sure, sure. Always tell people to don't just stop at the artist's Bandcamp. Go to the label's Bandcamp, you know? Like even digital digging is worthwhile when done manually. You know, don't just settle for what you see on the Sad Girl playlist, you know? Because there
Yeah.
might be the Sad Girl label. There might be a whole universe of this stuff you're missing, you know?
And then you'll have friends and you will no longer be sad.
That's
Yeah. And people need to go to Discogs too, because I feel
Yes.
like, most surfaces through which people experience digital music do not give you the ability to just like click on a player and be like, okay, what else was this person on? What else does this
right.
person write? Blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Yeah. Or just like read books.
Imagine.
I don't know how
Please.
to read. We already established this. So
You can just look at it and then somebody will tell you what they
we
saw
got
in the book.
picture books. Exactly. I love the
Yeah.
picture books.
Well, kind of, on this tip of like what it means to be ahead, I also was wondering about how you perceive your involvement in music communities as having influenced your own work, like maybe to tie this to your new record that is out in April. Could you talk a
Thank
little
you,
bit
Les.
about could you talk
Self-titled
a
Wendy Eisenberg ST.
yeah. We should like have like
JNR
a
514.
Brandon.
yeah.
Yeah, can you put those in for real?
Let's put in an air horn. Like,
Yeah.
Nick is producing. Nick, you're listening to this. Throw it in. Throw it in.
yeah.
We need Foley at the Who.
There we go.
But yeah, could you talk a little bit about like how your participation in various musical scenes has influenced your own work?
Oh man. I mean, that's like the coolest way for somebody to ask you about the story of your life, you know. But yeah, I think it's funny, like my life has always sort of felt like it's like I'll be doing one thing and then another thing is interesting and then I'll follow that and then the other thing calls me back and then I go back to that, but like deranged version because of the thing that I had gone to. So learning about jazz or whatever, like when I was really young, like getting into jazz when I was like 13, 14. Um, I think it like made me understand like how to like seek outside people and take them seriously because like you learn that like Scott LaFaro didn't just play with Bill Evans. You learn that he also played with Ornette. And then you're like, who's Ornette? Everyone's like talking about him really weird because of a post-Winton psychology. And then you're like, oh, he's the best. Okay, he's playing with Vern Nix. What else is he doing? Like just, following these things or whatever. Like you learn about this crate digging stuff that we've been talking about on like a pretty at a young age. And I think that I relate to the other work that my colleagues are doing very similarly. Like it's meaningful to me that Trevor's on this record, not just because of like our history making that record for Zodic, but because I love the song Retro Vertigo. I love Mr. Bungle. Like listening to them in like middle school, which probably feels insane for him to hear. Like if he's listening to this, like, you know, listening to that and like Trevor Dunn's trio Convulsant, like when I was really young, because like my first deep head friend who was like around my age was a bass player. So he was like following all that stuff. Like knowing what other projects people are doing is so vital and it makes you realize like yeah there's no way to be a musician especially in New York where you only do one thing that feels as exciting to me at least as like okay well this person's like going to go to South America with Mr. Bungle but like while he's on tour with Mr. Bungle he's going to go play with like this great upright bass player. There's a twin love of like I love this big rock band that was huge and probably like changed my life in ways that I could only imagine. But I also love these other practices. And I think that like surrounding myself with people like that has made my own music that much more fertile and it's made me feel less actually prone to the burnout we were beginning this discussion with because, that guy's made it possible for like many years, and Ryan is like a perfect example too. Like hanging with Ryan, like that's somebody who's like on Fiery Furnaces records, and he's also on the Scarlett Johansson record, and he's in Gang Gang Dance, and he was like a really major part of the '77 board drum thing, and so that's like so many disparate things. But also he toured on drums with Valerie June, who's like relatively normal compared to that stuff, and like just knowing that they're doing all that stuff is like yeah, maybe they're fending off against loneliness by doing it. Maybe it's something so simple as that. But probably it's because like they're wanting to listen to what's happening right now, and say like, yeah, I could be a part of that. Like I love the drums and I love hanging out with people. Why wouldn't I do more? Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like that's like I don't think I would have planned to have answered your question that way. I don't know why I am.
I love that we're saying that's like it's like a healthy coping mechanism against loneliness too. Because I mean, like we're always talking about music is social. We're always saying that on this pod, and it's like we're hearing about the male loneliness epidemic going on, and
Yeah,
it's like
start a band.
I don't think any of the lonely males are musicians because damn, like we gotta be talking to each other all the fucking time for this whole thing to happen, But like you said, it's like this hunger that stays with you well past like your young adulthood into you are commercially successful or whatever, you still want to know what's happening now. You're forever a student if you're really about that life, and that's something that should last until you no longer can think.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it like this, like the kind of success that you're taught is important in the music industry is like pretty iterative. Like I was talking about it with Mari in a kind of more woeful version, but it's sunny out, so it's happy now. But success in the music industry is iterative. Like you go on tour, both to go on tour and to say that you're going on tour, so that in the future people can help you go on tour. You get press so that people say, "Oh, they got this press. That means I should listen." It's like yes, it's performance studies vibes, which like I can't really escape, but like, the only thing that's not iterative like that is the performance of the music itself. Like you post on Instagram to say, I'm an artist who posts, but also look at this post. So then you can rely on me posting and then get the information from my posts to then see me post more. I don't know. I feel really burned out by that. I totally hate it, but it's also funny. So I can't totally hate it. Whatever. But the music resists that. Like when you're playing, you kind of are always in the moment of like, I'm sharing this thing that's like beyond me with you so that we can both be beyond ourselves or something. And like, that's why you do it. Like, you go on tour to say you're going on tour, but mostly the music will save you from like what might be you know, a, a caravan of your own misfortune or whatever a tour is. So, like, but I'm just thinking about it because the only thing that makes it all worth it is the performance of the music itself, and like I think that the musicians that I surround themselves with have had like such long careers. Like Mari has done so much. Like she's been professional or whatever since she's like been in her teens. And like Ryan and Trevor are the same way. Like Lester's that way. Like Editrix is a little bit of a different story because they're not so like obviously professional, but like they've been doing this like so hard for so long. And I think the only thing that keeps you doing it is just how rewarding making music itself can be when it feels right. And so like if that's your priority, like if you lose touch with that, then you make horrible music and like you're burnt out and you're projecting a dead specter on the world and I just hate it. But like if you're doing it because you actually love it, it's like it's the only way to tolerate any industry actually. Not like a do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life because working in the music industry, as I'm sure you both know, is like having someone slowly syringe your brain out of your ear. But the music is so nice that like,
Yes, why do we do
you
it?
can put it back in, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
So I think like if I can say that like my musical community has inspired me in any way, it's like it's let me my friends have let me know that you can do this long term because like if you're always grounded in the pursuit of making something honest, like the music honestly or the friendship, even if the music is kind of sucking that day, you can still be friends vibes, like then you're gonna want to keep doing it. But if it's just all to pay like finally I can now open like 1,000 cap or I can now perform 1,000 cap venues or like now I can perform at this, it's like that's a dead end and it's like not really helping you protect the thing that's magical about it, even if you do reach those heights and keep pure, which doesn't seem rare but could be more common, you know.
Tooling through the junkyard, I'm alone. For the very first time.
Well, I wanted to shift slightly and get back into teacher talk. This is the teacher's corner here on Critical Listening. And just kind of get your gauge on the state of the institutional jazz conservatory, big jazz trademark. This is still a genre, if we're going to call it, or maybe an umbrella term, that isn't it still isn't universally accepted on every curriculum. You know, there are places that still famously, stick to, Western concert music. And
God bless them.
God bless them. We are strictly a museum studies school. Um, but there really is this fine line, specifically in jazz, being that we do have to respect the oral traditions and the grassroots origins of this stuff that certainly started outside of these institutions, right? And cultivated both jazz and blues culture as we know it. But also as scholars and professional musicians, those that love to read and write about this stuff as well, we do feel the need to document and promote these things within the ivory tower to some extent. It's a very fine lines. How, as a teacher, are you able to like keep it real, but also like respect the art? How are we also keeping it real?
Great question. I'm lucky enough to teach in this kind of strange corner of the jazz institution of the new school, which is like the singer-songwriter department. So I
Mm,
teach composition, and which is their word for theory, which is insane, but I love it, but it's insane. It's basically like I love the philosophy behind calling it that, but it is fundamentally a theory class, because I'm just making
mhm,
them write compositions, which is okay, too much detail. But um, I teach it for songwriters, and a lot of people come in as vocalists, and so my classes are usually like majority femme, you know? And there are a lot of people who are like seeking refuge from this like sort of toxic jazz thing where like when you teach jazz in conservatory, you get a lot of kids who are like, because jazz is kind of self-identified at this point as like hard music, you know, they a lot of like the masculine vibe that shows up is like, I already know everything. Why am I at the school? I'm only
mm,
out here for 2 years so that I can like meet the person who will take me on tour. Like this is a very dating to like 70s Pat Metheny type mentality, but like it's still kind of there. And the students that I get are usually like, I actually want to learn this stuff. Nobody will teach it to me without like giving me these like small these microaggressions. Like and they're gonna like say that I'm bad at this because I'm coming from a perspective that isn't like bebop heavy or whatever, like or
mm,
gospel heavy or whatever it's coming from. Like they're deemed like deficient, and like I don't think that they are. Like these kids, I've got kids in there who make like the most ridiculously amazing like beats, or I've got kids there that are like trying to figure out I don't know how to set like what it feels like to read an Olga Ravin book into a song. It's like this they're like really advanced and they're worried about really advanced things, but like they're not treated like that because it's not within the jazz idiom. And I'm lucky because the classes that I teach are kind of geared toward that student because I don't think that they're being addressed. And I think that like the new school is kind of it's a really wild place because right now it's in this restructuring thing that is always so unclear to me about like what's actually happening. And
yeah.
it's troubled in its own ways, but like my like Keller, my boss is he has like a little fiefdom and it's kind of protected. So like we can teach like he started this singer-songwriter program and I kind of like leapt in to be like, I want to help that. Like that sounds amazing. Like it would be so great to have like something that isn't the Clive Davis Institute where you're like trying to be like a songwriter like Maggie Rogers. No disrespect. No offense, Liz. But it seems like a really pre-professional thing compared to what I'm trying to do there. And so like to have a place where I could be like, actually a song can be bitonal and can be really catchy. The thing though is that I'm always teaching jazz within those situations, but I have a lot of like I have an ethical conundrum teaching it because I think that the institutionalization of jazz is like very much mirrored by how it was like put in service of democracy. Like it like teach jazz was like something that was exported around being like, look at these incredible jazz musicians that like at one point maybe made like or still maybe made rebellious music, but it's going to be used now as a tool to let you know what democracy can sound like, which has
Right.
been going on pretty much since like the 40s and 50s. And like
Yeah.
the
Department of
institute
Culture, Federal Department of Cultural Affairs in France during World War II. Things like that.
exactly. And I think that like yeah, anything to make a buck. These people are incredibly exploited, sure. But also like not because when you're teaching these things in an institution, even if you don't intend to at the very beginning, like you start to create a canon of what's important. And so like I remember really distinctly being like 14, 15 and like doing jazz in like summer camps and stuff and being like, well, like why am I like this is really amazing. Why is no one talking about Andrew Hill? Like why am I just finding out about Jackie Byard? And these are people that are like within the straight ahead kind of idiom more or less, but they're not. Like they're kind of free bop, but you know, they swing in their way and still they're not as important as like I mean Eastman loves this kind of West Coast like swing like Jerry Mulligan, Stan Getz type thing. But
Yeah.
like which is amazing and like contrapuntal and totally divine, but like Jimmy Jeffrey is like totally incredible and I don't think a lot of people are talking about him anymore. So like props to the Eastman like cult for that. But like, you know, either way, whatever it is that's being like focused on by a school, you start to create like a canon that then like students are assumed to already know when they're getting in there because there's like this if you're going to music school you probably want to do a good job because like maybe if you don't even maybe you've not thought about it but the return on interest is pretty low so you're just kind of like oh shit like now I have to have already known about all of these Magus records which are amazing and actually closer to like modern pop music the same way that like Monk or Sun Ra is like they have hooks in a way or like they're ambient in a way, whatever that word means, you know. But like the jazz, like the course of jazz has been like kind of set at this point. It's been institutional music since the 60s and 70s, if not, if you don't count Lenny Tristano's school or like
Right.
Mary Lou Williams's type of teaching. And so it just, it's really easy for like your brain because you're tired and you're also probably trying to make your own performance career happen to say oh these are the only things that are important and this is the way to do them right and I think the way that I keep myself honest and keep it real back to your 17 years ago question that you asked was like um you know I just try to stay up with like what these kids are listening to the degree that I can and if I like it you know and I also just try to keep it like you know in my mind that these guys are the future of music and what do I want the future of music to be teaching and they're not the only future of music I mean the future of music's really what's happening like I don't know, like on some oil field with like 1,000 speakers that you see on Instagram or whatever, where like somebody's just making like an experiment. But this is another future of music that's really important. And it's if these people are the future, like why wouldn't you want the future to sound good? And then you try to teach to that rather than like it's really important that you actually get every single technique that made like fuck, I don't even know. Like people are just misreading Miles Davis all the time, you know. Like they
Yeah.
don't understand that he's about context. And it's like he'll play minimally because his context is maximal. So it's like if you
Yeah.
don't talk about that, like or if you don't let them get to that conclusion by some creative teaching method or whatever, then all of a sudden you think that Miles Davis is only somebody with like two great quintets and then he like didn't matter in the 70s and beyond, which is like really how I felt. I don't think I was taught like that explicitly, but the priority was always like the early thing that is good that aligns with jazz teaching is always the right one. I feel like I've been talking for like 300 years about
No, no,
this.
no, no. It's like it's so fascinating because it's like maybe the issue is like how do you get accredited as a conservatory that does both classical and jazz, but the you know whatever Middlesex higher education accreditation organization doesn't care about genre, so the only way to assess is through this virtuosity,
Mm-hmm.
rather than like studying in on context and like the social sort of upbringings of this sound, right?
Yeah.
And jazz is they're trying to fit it into a box alongside baroque and romanticism and film scoring and straight ahead pop or whatever songwriting, and it's like I don't know, it's an enigma of American 20th century that like is pretty hard to put in that box without like shaving a lot of the edges off of it,
I
and
think
it's
it's like maybe even less, if you don't mind, like I just am
yeah,
excited
go.
thinking about this. I think it's less about trying to shave it, but it's more like one person's particular understanding becomes the box. Like it's another
Right.
iterative thing where
Mm.
like if you solidify that jazz is important in these ways and that you have to be a virtuoso to play it, which is like quasi true, like you do have to have fluency on whatever instrument in a way that I mean country music is just as rigorous and actually more conservative in terms of certain harmony conventions, you know. um but like if virtuosity is your point, like why wouldn't there be history classes that talk about like what the ethics of virtuosity are? There's theories of virtuosity that are linked with neoliberalism and that are like linked with like the gig economy, where it's like if you can actually be so flexible as to be a virtuoso, then that means that like there's some kind of deep study that you're capable of that can then be exploited, where virtuosity is both a demonstration of what it looks like to be rigorous as much as it is like your ability to acclimatize your technique to whatever situation you're in, which is benevolent if it's like you're Bill Frisell and you're a virtuoso at style and you can like play anything and it's like amazing, and then people use your playing to make their playing sound better. That's nice. But it could also be like, now you're going to do whatever I want because you can't do anything, which is, I think, what like the contemporary laborer is often asked to do. And I think that like if your students don't understand that, like they don't know whether virtuosity is a good choice for them, because like as somebody who like has been called one, which is hilarious and amazing considering how many limitations I have on guitar and in life, like it doesn't really help everything, and it certainly doesn't help you find your own voice, and it also troubles your relationship to your own voice, because if you can do everything, why would you choose, you know?
Oof.
So I think when things are standardized in this, like they have to be accredited, I actually don't think that the standards that like make virtuosity something to perceive are that bad. I think it's nice to be fluent, and it empowers people to remember that they can do whatever they need to physically do to make the sound that they want and to do it healthily. I think that's what technique is, and that's ideally what virtuosity can be an outgrowth of, is like good technique. But when the standards are like unchecked, like then that's the problem, you know, because you're actually just speaking to like some weird ghost version of what somebody 20 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever, was thinking was
Right.
important, which is probably also how these classical musics were taught back then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Everybody was cutting edge in their time, and then give it 30 years and they're conservative, or if they're still doing the same thing. Just staying on education, last bit about education here is in working with your students specifically, as someone who yourself, has, let's say, an experimental, a deeply avant-garde wing, and some maybe more palatable for the normies, even, let's say, commercial uh music potentially. You got earworms and you got walls of sound, and we got everything in between here. Like, what advice do you give to these students who want to be flirting with a little bit of this, a little bit of that? Like you said, like, you're teaching songwriting and you're telling them it can be bitonal. It doesn't need to be just in a major key in order for it to be poppy and have a hook, right? Like, how are we able to you know approach avant-garde aesthetic within a potentially more maybe mainstream sort of box here, because like you said, like I love what you were saying about like virtuosity, like informed by neoliberalism and the need to be Sigma grind set, like needing to do it all, like in a gig economy, right? And the music industry that was promised to you and I in college in the late 2000s and stuff is not the same as it is now, although it probably was just as neoliberal but not as accelerated, let's say.
Sure.
um so I'm just, I'm curious, like, about the advice that you give to these students about finding your niche while combining things that might on paper seem to be opposing forces of musical aesthetic here.
Yeah. Um, okay. There's a lot there. First of all, I remember I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question totally correctly, where it's like, if there's a student that wants to flirt with an avant-garde idea and also wants to like make popular music, whatever that
Yeah.
means, like how do I teach them? Is that kind of the
Yeah, pretty
I'm
much.
just so excited. Like no one ever asks me this, and it's like all I think about. I mean, Mari does, but I'm such a wife guy in this interview and also in life. But yeah. So like I think
Listen to Maurice
yeah,
too.
listen to Maury.
Maurice,
She's got a
listen.
record that's also already going to have been
That's right.
out. Sentence structure in the country is the record on Thrill Jockey, inestimably great label. But yes, spun over. Um, I just don't think that hooks are like not part of inherently kind of part of experimental music. Maybe the hook is the game that the musician is playing. Like if they're doing a durational work, like the hook is not something that you sense as like, yeah, like it's not like like it's not like that, but like the hook is that like, yeah, it's going to be 24 hours, you know. Like the hook can be on a conceptual level, or
Right.
if you're concerned about, or if, as I am concerned about, like bi-tonality or whatever being like in a popular song, like you just have to listen to like any kind of contemporary hip hop, and like the beat will usually be in like a slightly different place. I mean, not like the beat, the rhythm of the beat, but like the sample might be polytonal
Right.
compared to like what's being spoken or sung or whatever, like which has a pitch and an intonation, but it's like working on like a level of harmony that's not about classical functional harmony, you know, or common practice harmony. It's just like here's like a musical situation, and then here's like a melody on top of it, and they're not always even in the same tuning system, but it's not so self-conscious. So the hook could be more of a literal hook in that case, but like if you were to like dissect it through the lens of maybe Western classical music, you could say like, yeah, this is polytonal pretty easily. And I just don't think that those things are foreclosed from each other. Like I think making experimental music, like when you do it self-consciously, like it can either be the most transcendent thing in the world where the hook is the concept, or like maybe you don't even perceive the concept, but the hook is like how it feels or whatever. Either way, something keeps you listening to it. Like when I listen to like, you know, non-idiomatic music, aka like Derek Bailey kind of world stuff, like the thing that keeps me listening to it is the ethos of surprise, and also the materiality, and like the things that I find beautiful about the sonic textures themselves, whatever it is. But either way, like that's as strong of a pull for me. And I think when I'm teaching students, like they might not like that stuff. Oftentimes they don't. Like memorably, I brought in like a Braxton piece for this ensemble I have to like learn, and they were all just like, we don't want to do this. And I was like, you are missing the point. I hate it, but also like you don't want to do it, so whatever. But you know, they did see like the technique behind it, and were like, that actually is usable for this like other thing that I want to do. And this kind of misreading, you know, of like other people's work is so important to their creativity, where it's like they're not wholesale being like Anthony Braxton is trash. Like no one would be like that. He's a total, I listen to him as much as I can, and I think he's amazing. And he's not writing like hooks or whatever, but I listen to him for the hook that is how he sounds.
Mm.
Like Pat Thomas makes hooks, you know, like these. And I think that like a normative understanding of a hook is like what makes pop music seem reductive to people who don't like pop music, where they're like, oh yeah, this is the only thing a hook can be. It has to be just like stuck in your brain, and it has to kind of sound like how it feels to be in a CVS or a diner, depending on the era. Like it's just like there's these pop commerce elements to it that are like, I don't know, it seems like that's important to people, but actually like a hook can be anything. Like I relate so often to this moment in the Thelonious Monk biography where he's just like, yeah, I kind of write pop songs. And it's like, I feel like I'm writing pop songs even when I'm in some like crazy ass wall of sound noise thing like Swanderers, even though I'm not writing anything for that. Like the hook is something on a deeper level than just a melody you can remember or a beat that you can step to, even though those things are the most important, you know, for other musics. So I think
It
when
can
I'm
be
teaching
a
kids,
gesture.
it's a gesture, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
like when I'm teaching students that, it's like really what I hope to teach them as much as the techniques to make what they want to make. I want to teach them like to how to listen with a kind of broader approach to be like, well, what's sticking in your mind? And then instead of asking why, like, how can I reproduce it? It's like, what is the fact of that hook doing to you? And then maybe you can do it on a much more somatic way where like you make a hook that sticks with you because you've learned how it feels to have a hook stick with you. So it's like a little bit more like I'm feeling the hook. Like what's the thing that keeps me listening to Radigue? It's not like something that I remember except for how it feels, you
Mm.
know. And so like how do I get those students to that level of like they hear a song so deeply that they know that it's good because they're hearing their own music that deeply, which is a standard of like goodness, I think, you know, that's pretty uncontrollable except for by them and their own awareness of what they like.
It's super interesting, like hearing you sort of speak philosophically about what a hook is, sort of at a time where I kind of think of the concept of a hook as being like so just like twisted by short form content.
Yeah.
And like this idea that, you know, like you have to release like I feel like there's this like, you know, idea in pop music that, you know, you release the hook first, you see if it goes viral, and if it doesn't, it's basically dead and you like don't You know, like I remember a few years ago, there was this article that was going around where like professional pop songwriters were talking about how they were having to cope with the loss of all of these dead copyrights because major labels were making them sort of like release the hook first on TikTok. If it didn't go viral, then like they were just like killing the song and like either not finishing writing it, or the label would be like, okay, we're not putting this out.
Oh my
They were
God.
like, so it's just like, I feel like there's like this real sort of like instrumentalization of like the hook too, where it's just sort of like if the hook goes viral, we release the song. I mean, I even remember, I talk about this in my book, but the first time a student at the institution where I was teaching for a while told me about how their approach to songwriting had become they would write hooks, put them on TikTok. When one went viral, then they would finish writing that song.
That's
And
so
like,
insane. But maybe it's not.
I don't blame an 18-year-old for thinking that with no one else telling them that's not how it should be, because that's just how if you look at your phone, how we presume it's just the way it is, right? You know,
Yeah.
but we're in a, I was just telling this Liz yesterday on group critique of the first 30 seconds of Spotify is how you get the monetization of the play, right? So you throw in the hook first, you start out with a shebang. We don't even have intros anymore, slow burns and things. And it's because of the platform's monetization methods require, leading off really strong rather than, easing into something. And, tech has, since the birth of home audio, has informed much of song structure in many ways, but I feel like we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here now.
I
well,
mean,
I also like
yeah.
just wanted to throw in too, like because I would assume that both of you probably don't know this, but on the platform Suno, they have a like short form video feed that is literally called hooks, where like
Whoa.
like people making music on Suno are encouraged to take clips like and put them on hooks where they can be discovered, and it's sort of like the same kind of, it's kind of their like short form video TikTok reels like
The For You
dimension to,
page.
yeah. And I don't know, I was
Yeah.
like yeah, talking about this with the friend recently, and we were like, the word hook has a meaning,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it's not how it's being interpreted here.
Totally. I mean, I feel like very early on in my life, I was seduced by this kind of like holographic quality of words where like they usually don't mean one thing, especially in English, it feels like, because that's the only language I know. I would say that, I'm horribly monolingual, but at least I try to be advanced in it, whatever that means. Yeah. When you're just like going through life and a word just like spins on its axis, like that's one of the delights for me. And like hook is also one of them. Like when you're saying you put them on hooks, I like had not thought about like hook being this inert thing that you wear like a coat that is on a hook. Like just, and I think that like for me, when I teach, I'm always looking for the most holographic definition of whatever like theoretical term I'm teaching people. Like I want them to be like, yeah, a hook is also a conceit, but like what you're talking about, like the monetization of a hook and like the specialization of like the job of hook writing is like there is a way to do it, and that's never been interesting to me, but that is interesting to my students, especially as they crave like financial stability, which I don't think contemporary pop songwriters like even have right now. Like I think that there's just more and more
Yeah.
ways to exploit
Yeah.
them, and it has always been pretty rough, but now it's like really bad. And so it feels kind of funny, like I'm burying my head in the sand to say like, yeah, I'm teaching these people that a hook can be anything. Well, like a hook is increasingly like a 40 second like thing that you can sing, but I don't know.
10, 12.
10,
Yeah,
12,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what is so interesting that like this is bringing up is like I think in head and like in some head circles like ambient music is more popular than ever, and I think it's because those intros
so.
and like verses and stuff have been taken away. Like the contextualization of a hook is like not the art anymore, it's just like the refinement of it. And like I think like things that are subject to like markets can be good if the market is like a bunch of people dancing. Like if you make a dance track and it like takes off in the club, like that feels like it actually still is art in this way because the art is moving people. I actually do want to say like one last thing just in terms of the record. I'll try to be fast, but you know, I've been doing a lot of press for it, and I'm really lucky that people are interested in this record, especially because it's probably the thing I'm the most proud of that I've made recently. Like it's the most like distillation of things that are related to what I listen to usually, and um, which is an insane thing to say because now I'm hearing like everything that doesn't sound like the record that I listen to, just like saying what about me or whatever in my brain. But um, what was so cool about making it that seems related to all this discussion is like I wrote these songs and like they're really, I know they're catchy. Like they're some of my like strongest like classical type songwriting where it's like here's a hook, here's like all these different sections that go in,
Yeah.
and I really love that about them. I love that they're like, I was joking to Mari about how funny it would be to call like a greatest hits record like if I'm like if I make it there, like even if just as a joke for me, just calling it American Craftsman, because it's like so embarrassingly boomer, but also like so how I feel about like working on writing. And but the thing is, like, I think that the record would be far worse and wouldn't be getting the kind of attention, or at least like the people in my life saying that they like it, if it wasn't written with you know, the idea that it'll be produced with a bunch of air in it. So it's like I think that there can be like the hooks that I hear on these like 40-second things, or like if I'm a TikTok sound or whatever, they sound compressed. They sound like airless. And like, I think the music that like people in my life crave, like from all eras, is something where you can hear the space that they're made in. And like these airless things, when there's like just too many like things happening, and I love it when there's a ton of stuff happening. When you can like hear space and when you can hear people actually interacting with each other, like it's just it's so amazing, and it makes a hook feel transcendent even if it's like compressed as shit. Like I'm thinking about ABBA being so catchy or whatever, and like they just like you can still hear that there's like a relationship between those people, and like maybe the air that you hear in a record is a relationship, maybe the air that you can hear is like the actual like room mic capturing room air, like, but there has to be some quality beyond the craftsmanship that like makes it worth listening to. And I think that in the pursuit of a perfect hook you like lose context, and that's what kind of makes it feel so soulless, because you don't see what's setting it up, like, or what's setting it up is so obviously less important to the songwriter that they have to like crowdsource a reason for continuing to write the song, which to me, like as like a hermit type songwriter who has to be totally alone and like in touch with like woo woo forces to like do anything that feels real, is so like against my process. And so if I can say anything about the record that I've made, it's like it feels like it's the closest thing to letting that philosophy of like you have to hear the relationship, you have to hear the way that these people like the song, not just that you wrote it, but like the fact that the band is actually here for it. Like that support is something that I always look to, like it's just part of every good bit of music, you know.
Mhm. I love
Yeah.
that because something that I've been having conversations with people a lot recently, because I'm just like fully in trying to sort of like wrap my head around the current moment in Gen AI. Sorry to keep making this so evil. But
No, you have to
I'm
worry
like,
about these things.
you know, I'm like, what must happen for songwriting to have taken place? Or like, what do people who I really respect as artists and songwriters like think of as sort of essential to art making or to writing have taken place, or some sort of like meaningful process of collective collaboration have taken place? And I love this idea of air, or just being able to like hear the room, like hear people making art together.
It definitely bears repeating, like God, I could say some stuff about this like studio that some of my students like are taking a class at, where they like used um like AI in the class to show like how modern studio production works for big pop artists. We'll just make an AI track and then like have this person, and all my students who are like my punks who I loved were just like, what?
Well,
And it's like,
and they're paying what to go to school for that?
dude, they're so. This one student of mine, God bless her, she was so angry. She was like trembling telling me about it. And I was just like, I love you. And I'm never worried about her songs. I mean, they're incredible. I think if she's listening to this, she definitely knows who she is. But like, I mean, I love all my students' work, but like, I just love how angry she was about this. Like, it was so awesome because like, you know, her heart is in that place. Like, it's in the place where we are, where it's like, why would you take this social function? Like, I think about how like songs are like relaying stories of our time, and even if they're about love, they're about more than love. It's like when you have bad cooking, it's not made with love, and if you're making something with AI, you're making something with like, I don't know, 40% of the state income for Virginia or something. It's not love. It's actually just, evil. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Morning, ink has barely dried. The sky, a navy blanket over Mission Drive. My mother makes breakfast, she keeps me alive. Another lifetime floats away.
So this is a new segment, first installment on Critical Listening, where we're hoping that we can just talk to artists and writers, the types of people we interview on the show about their daily listening habits, in order to maybe, kind of offer a counterbalance to some of like the more common narratives around how people listen to music today, offer alternatives. I just think it's super interesting learning about how people actually listen to music in their daily lives. So maybe we could start open-ended. Can you tell us about your daily listening habits? Like, what's typically a day in your listening life like?
So teaching music, you hear a lot of student work, and sometimes you don't want to listen to music before or after that because you're just like not musiced out or whatever, but you just want to have like clear ears. And then, the next day you think that that's a horrible misreading of engaging with work, and then you listen to everything in the world. So it's like there's no traditional day for me, or traditional, what the hell? Like there's no typical day for me. And like it's pretty variable. But so usually if Mari's teaching earlier than me that day, like I'll take the dog out, and I usually try not to listen to like music on a phone. So I have this MP3 player.
Yeah.
I have the Walker H2 Walker. I don't know if you know it. And I have a 200D6 chip with like a bunch of music that I've just like had
Oh, cool.
from like my entire, like, so when I was in jazz schools and just like in music in the 2000s, like people would just like share stuff on hard drives. So I have like a lot of stuff that's like made it like Darwin style to like this ultimate hard drive, and it's like on that. And obviously not all of it fits, so I have to like make choices. And also obviously like I'm constantly downloading or buying music, so I'm trying to like fit these things on it. But ultimately right now, before I get a 512, this is great. And so I just like search like hardcore in the function, because it's like I don't have the Rockbox thing for it where you can actually search well. It's like the way that I have it organized is just terrible. So I'm usually just like kind of going through until my hand is tired and doing like straight, like not real random shuffle, but like human random
Yeah.
shuffle. And then I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about like this record in like 20 years. Let's go. And I walk the boy to that. I've been feeling like really weird about noise canceling headphones recently when I'm not on flights or the train. And so if I'm just around the neighborhood, or if I know I'm going to be taking a walk that day, I just listen to these like kind of open ear. They're still like overhead. They're not like AirPods or whatever, but like even talking on these headphones, which are just my studio headphones, I'm like, I feel kind of like I'm wearing a very tight shirt or something. But in general, so the music I listen to, it starts off pretty random, and then I'm usually reminded of something I want. And then I'll put on something that I know. Or then Mario will be like, have you heard this? A lot of the time I'll wake up with like a song in my head. Like I've had the Murder She Wrote, Murder She Wrote song stuck in my head. And so I've been like trying to listen to those records and like see what's up with like pop. Yeah, usually I'm like reminded of something, and then I like need to go listen to that. Or like I forget, oh hey, I actually haven't like kept up with this artist. I'm gonna go listen to like the last 5 records that she did or something. Like there's so many people in the world, I want to hear them all. And that's like to and from work. And then sometimes Mari and I will play records at home, but usually we're like watching a movie, and then like invariably there'll be some kind of cut in the movie that's like so good that then we're like, wait, what is up with this like one collab from the soundtrack of Southland Tales or whatever? And then like, so it's basically like rabbit holes either from human memory or like encountering it like on the street. Or sometimes New York just sounds really good, so I'll be like walking with Maria down the street with the boy at like night, and there'll be like a guy singing over like a really sick beat, and I'll never find that again. Or like there's a really sick like dance version of like the ice cream truck song on my block a couple summers ago that was like burned in my brain, but like definitely just some guy making it. And like you just try to like keep your ears open to like that, and which is why I like things that don't cancel noise, because like I'd rather hear that by accident even if I'm listening to something already.
What other besides the DAP, besides the MP3 player, as far as do you have physical media at home? Do you use any streaming services or websites to find things on the web?
I have a lot of physical media. Like the entire wall that's outside of our studio right there is covered in LPs and tapes, and we have a lot of CDs too. But we don't have a CD player that's like that reliable in our apartment, like hi-fi setup. So like we are usually listening to cassettes or LPs, and we have so many, it's like crazy, and even more books for sure. But so we have all of that stuff and we listen to them. It's a very like party hangout vibe with the physical media. And then CDs are kind of relegated either to like we have this like Walkman type CD situation or they're in the car. And that's great because I don't know, you there's a lot of stuff on CD that's just not on the internet. You know, I have like those books, like I have my high school like giant CD wallet books, and that's great for like road trips and stuff because CDs just sound so much better in the car. It's so weird to like sort through things that were lost and things that weren't lost. And also some of those CDs are now because of like, you know, Discogs is like life, it's kind of a gift and it can kind of suck. And like
And a curse.
yeah, life is a gift that sucks. It's like a motto that I have. But from Owen Manure of, you know, Western Mass Noise Legend, that's from his Facebook.
Nice.
But anyway, just crediting. But yeah, like I don't know. Also, like CDs are so personal. Like my friend Shane, who I mentioned earlier, is like a genius, and like he made me this like cassette tape of all the best like Grateful Dead space. So I have this like ambient cassette that's just like space. And then he also made me this like musical out of later period Spark songs that like has a narrative. It's kind of an opera from like Hello Young Lovers and Lil Beethoven. So it's like, and that's something that like I hear that as, but it's not. It's just physical media from my friend. And I remember also like when I first got my friend shared with me a download of Chris Weissman's Fresh Sip, but he shared it in alphabetical order, which is now the only way I can hear it. Like things like that are my favorite, where it's like this is only for like the people who heard it this way. And yeah, it's paradise, kind of like weird paradise just for you. And as far as digital stuff, I listen a lot on Bandcamp. Um, you know, one of the bands that like rocked my world in the like this band only changed maybe 10 to 15 people's lives type way, and maybe more, I don't actually know, is this band called the Philadelphia Parking Authority Must Die, which I don't like know what they are, but I like found them on like AOL Music when I was like 12.
Yes.
And it sounds
Yes.
it's like really good, seemingly home recorded sounding, like interesting kind of DIY tapey, but not like self-consciously so. It's really good music. And so like I can't find their CD anywhere, and if I can't do that, then I try to find Soulseek, or like maybe they're
Oh
on
yeah.
Bandcamp. But I'm a Soulseek freak. Like Mari and I love it.
Could you actually elaborate on that a little bit? Because I feel like there's probably some critical listening listeners who still sort of like find it hard to negotiate like how you can be sort of like pro artist and like also okay with file sharing.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, and I'm one of them actually because like I everything is free is a song that actually does destroy me, like the Gillian Welch Dave Rolling song, and like I get it, you know,
Same.
but I think there are certain cases where you just can't find the thing you're looking for, you know, and like the thing you're looking for is really important, and maybe you've like emailed the artist, maybe you've gone that far, you know, and you just can't because it's just not there anymore, or like before Zodic was like on streaming or whatever, it was so hard to find like
Yeah.
certain records that were on there. And so even if I like would just be holding out for a physical version of it for the future, like, or maybe I was living in a small apartment, whatever it is, but like the narrative is just like, I want to hear this music. And like for that, like, I've always been the kind of artist that's making music for people who love music. Like I love artists like that and I want to be that. And so if someone can't afford my music, or like if somebody's just curious about it and they don't want to buy a record, like let's say they're young, let's say like they don't have that much money coming in, like whatever, it's like, do I really want it to be like, no, you can't afford it, or do I want to be like, hey, this thing that I created in an ethos of sharing because sharing saved my life, like why would I not want them to have that?
Yeah.
But also like the issue to me is not so much with like file sharing as it is with like predatory streaming stuff. I'm underread in copyright law, I'll be honest. But I do think that when you try to like make illegal these ways of sharing, just even in terms of just like the parts of songs that you steal, then it's kind of feels like a willful like return to a pre-postmodernism time. Like
Mm.
things, people are influenced by each other. It's a living thing, and when capital enters into the space, it's really hard to remember that like music is not made by yourself for the for the pursuit of profit. Like, and I think that like people deserve money for their work. People just beyond even like live stuff, beyond record sales, whatever. Like people, like this is labor and it is valuable. But I just think that like trying to find like a record that nobody bought in 1971 that you can't find by somebody from DC after having talked to everybody in DC that might have it, and you're like, please, where's the record? I just don't think it's like evil for you to hear music that is not even being gate kept. Just no one might be trying to find it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that like it's, if you're fighting against that in now in like 2026, like that's kind of vintage of you in its own way. Like that's like a what 25, 30-year-old fight. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay, Lars vibes, but like but there's this other sense to me where it's like the real issue is like the overlords that are like devaluing music actively. Like when you're doing file sharing, it's not like you're paying money for something, but you are like valuing music because you're searching for it. Like
Yeah.
at least the way that I use SoulSeek, I'm like, I've been on Discogs for like 6 hours at that point, and I'm like, I just need to hear this. Surfing side people until all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell? And then I hear it, and I'm like, this is amazing. And it's not amazing for this like colonialist logic of my own discovery. It's amazing because it's amazing music that I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And like, I just don't think that trying to find that is bad, especially if you can't find it. Like, so much of my favorite music doesn't stream.
Yep.
So much of my favorite music only streams away from Spotify. I mean, I'm a huge Joanna Newsom fan, and like she's not there. So like, what are all these like, I want to call them pay pigs who like use Spotify doing? It's such a fucked up thing to say to half the audience
Yo,
here.
enshrine that. That's it. That's
But I'm just like, I'm saddened by it because it's like when people take their stuff off streaming, it's like it's a beautiful thing. I want to like, I have feelings about it every day where I'm like, looking at my numbers makes me want to jump off of a bridge. The fact that they're public is totally satanic. Like just this idea that it's all about numbers.
Can you talk a little bit about your MP3 collection then? Like, how do you listen to music when you're on a computer?
So when I'm on a computer, I like have stuff kind of split between like a hard drive that then I like drag the thing into VLC, or I like put it just on
Wow.
what is it too
No,
vintage?
this is my struggle. How do I organize my metadata? And I refuse to just do the manual every time with VLC.
Well, I just like to listen to like the same things over and over again. Like if I'm not doing the like associative listening thing where I'm like, I love Pliers right now, like I'm gonna listen to everything Pliers has been on. Like I'm usually just like, wow, this MP3 someone sent me in like 2018 of like their work in progress. I want to listen to that. And like that's only gonna be on an MP3. And I end up just leaving it there. I have like a
Wait,
lot
what
of
is
space.
VLC?
VLC player, that's just like a classic all media player, but you can't organize library metadata like you can on iTunes music player, right?
Okay,
So
got
it
it.
becomes very much like it is kind of the equivalent what Wendy's describing here of like putting on a record, but with like throwing in a folder,
Mhm.
but it's only going to be there when you import it, and it's not going to be organized in the full massive index archive of all your artists alphabetically. It will just be opening a folder that could be played in order of files.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
Okay. Okay,
Like I
so
love it.
yeah.
I need it. It's my fave, but it's a mess. And also like I'm not a FLAC guy either, but
Yeah.
like sometimes I'll just erroneously download a FLAC because it's the only way that I can like
Yeah.
find. Because heads are heads and they're fussy
Heads
sometimes.
are heads.
Like head's gonna be head. So like you just have to listen to it on VLC. But yeah, I also have a ton of stuff in my iTunes library, but like that's always updating in ways that I don't really understand. Like I sound more tech literate because I'm using things that are not so familiar than I actually am. So like I just don't understand like what's ever going on between like my iPhone and then my iTunes, and it's a mess. And I'll try to upload stuff onto it, but then I can't like so I do have a streaming service. I'm on the student plan for Apple Music, and using my edu email address.
Take
And
that, Tim Cook.
Yeah. And I do like it because I can see what like my friends are listening to. I actually think that that's cool, but like I don't really like that all the time. I like that you can request friends versus like the Spotify thing, which really disgusted me like years ago because I had Spotify for a few months and was like really grossed out by the idea that people could see how much I was listening to like music that I didn't want them to see I was listening to.
Well, something I love that you're saying about your MP3 collection is that like it's sprawling and messy and like, you're not sort of obsessively trying to like organize it because I do think that there's this kind of like tendency to really want to like order our digital music, like whether it be through playlists, through having the metadata be like really obsessively updated and organized.
Guilty.
And, it's interesting to like hear you talk about, I don't know, do you feel like it's intentional or is it just not important to you?
Whoa.
I don't know.
Yeah, why don't you care about album art embedded in files,
No,
Wendy?
because maybe that's like a good reminder to people, like, like what, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, you can just like upload a bunch of your music into a player and just like listen to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a combination. Like, I do have the impulse to organize it. Like, I enjoy organizing stuff in my life, and like that includes files because I'll be driven totally insane if I like see all of them as is. But I do think that I keep it messy because like it's cool to have limitations. Sometimes a limitation is like really horrible and you're just like, why can't I find this? But most of the time the limitation points you in a direction of like, okay, I wanted to listen to this for like the 78th time that week, but like, maybe the fact that it's messy is making me listen to this thing I haven't listened to in forever, or maybe I haven't listened to, but like never got around to because I kept prioritizing the thing I already knew, which is kind of the opposite of an algorithmic reception, you know?
Yeah, it's like the
Mhm.
happenstance. We miss the happenstance of listening with physical media when it comes to digital media because of that need to organize or the default oftentimes of it being so organized. VLC players tends to be the rarity compared to. I mean, I don't know. Most people, including myself, still who are into MP3s would use iTunes just because of the
Yeah.
organization of artists or album or whatever like that. But there is that like, yeah, when I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking for in my vinyl right now. It's like, oh, this thing. I
Yeah.
forgot I had this. Those moments might happen less and less when you could just search, boom, put it on, but right there, have it on as much as you want, and you might not,
Mhm.
accidentally stumble upon this thing the same
Yeah.
way.
I just think
I've,
accidents are interesting.
I agree. I had two follow-up questions from what you were talking about earlier. Can you explain a little bit more about why you don't like listening to music on your phone?
Um, I just feel like it sounds worse than when I listen to it on my MP3 player. Like it's just a simple maybe there's like two real answers for it, which is like one, it sounds worse, and two, I think you can hear the existential weirdness of listening to music on a phone. Like it's not like I'm listening to music on like a sub-Saharan cell phone, like the comp. It's like I'm listening to music on like an iPhone of whatever
On a
number and whatever
mobile
provenance.
computer.
Yeah, and like I don't like looking at it. Like if I'm listening to music on a phone, that's like I'll be that much more likely to scroll on something I don't care about. I'll be distracted from like the point of it. I'll probably be listening because it's there and not because I searched for it. Like but also just sonically there's like a specific type of like phone compression that like even if you like make something really well and you're listening to it, like it just adapts itself to that, it seems like.
For
And
sure.
again, maybe this is like I'm talking about witchcraft and I don't understand it type thing, but like I think it sounds materially different. And then when I listen to something on MH2, it's like there's air, like there's actually like you can hear the recording. And
Hmm.
part of it is streaming services all have seemingly their own like compression techniques and tendencies. And so if you're listening on streaming, like I listen to streaming, like I'm happy to have my like Apple Music streaming thing just to find out what people are listening to. And so it's easier for me to find what students are talking about in lessons or like what might be the new thing that like they care about, like I don't know, just on a faster level just during school times and like just to be curious faster. But like if I'm actually listening to music for my own like personal enrichment as an artist, like the phone feels like a thin plastic version of like the hefty thing that I even just hear in an MP3 player.
I also kind of like hate like listening to music when I'm like walking around the city out in the world, which I think people might like disagree with me. But that's for that reason. I also wanted to ask you about to follow up on like what you said about noise canceling headphones. Can you talk a little bit more about your distaste for noise canceling headphones?
I think they're an incredible tool that is like unbelievably overused in civilian life. Like if you're ever like walking around in New York, which is a famously loud city, like people on the train are so quiet now. And I think that that's okay. Like it should be your little meditation thing if you want it to be, but like not being able to hear stuff is fucked up. I just don't think it's like it's right to be like in a city, which is like, I mean, a city is like a projection, right? Like you are choosing to live in a city, which is choosing to live in like a name, but actually you live in your house and then you like go to the subway, or if you don't have a house, you like live in the street of the city and you're actually a resident of the city. And it's this constant negotiation between the image of the city and like where your domestic life, like it's just something that feels like you're already living in an imaginary thing, you know? And when you're listening to music, which is like a world that you're partially imagining, partially sensing, partially experiencing, whatever, but it's like this kind of extra life affair in a city where you should be able to hear people breathing and stuff, and you actually can't even hear them over your music or over your podcast or whatever, God bless it. Like you're just kind of like alienated. Like I feel alienated when I do that only. And sometimes it's protection because like people can be creepy and they can be like at you and stuff, and that's like a great time to not be able to hear somebody. But I like hearing like how the civic world sounds. Like I there's like beats that come out of cars and I hear the Doppler effect on them and it makes me want to cry. They're so immediate and amazing. And like
Yeah.
I think like it's a mood thing. Like sometimes the sensory overload of the city is like will screw with your head and you're just like you need to be imaginary. But if that's like the default, like it just seems lonely to me and it seems like you're denying like other sonic dimensions beyond the thing that you choose. And like probably the best and worst, but certainly the most like dynamic thing about a city is that you don't choose what's happening all the time.
It's reminding me of when we were talking, Liz and I were talking to Damon Krakowski on his book and discussing the the costs of soundproofing windows for luxury condos on like the Upper East Side, and how much a rich person in Manhattan is willing to pay to sort of emulate the feeling, the sound of the suburbs via this pseudo silence, you know. And so it could be lonely and alienating for those that, you know, by default are trying to drown out, I don't know, maybe the creepy person on the train next to them, or just like wants a little moment to themselves, right? But at the larger level of how far people will go to invest in that silence, it really, it's not loneliness, it's antisocial behavior,
Mm-hmm.
anti-human behavior. You could go live in the Hamptons, you know, but you live in Manhattan. Why are you spending tens of thousands of dollars to pretend like you're not living in, you know, a city of 9 million people, right?
Because real estate's a good investment for these total creeps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally hearing you. I mean, I did live on the ground floor when I first moved here and it was like loud as fuck and super annoying. So I like on some level totally get it, you know.
Yeah.
But like I just mean when you're walking around in domestic like in a not domestic space, when you're walking around in like what's left of the commons or something, you just want to hear it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who needs your help. You don't know who like you might need help from. You don't know like who might be trying to like sell you something, which is annoying, but it's like a thing that happens. And like you don't know who I don't know. Also, like being a dog owner feels weird to say I own Keith. He's kind of his own man. But like when you're listening to headphones and you're like walking your dog, like you're gonna have to take off your headphones like 600 times
I know. I
because
couldn't handle that.
no, it's fantastic because then you talk to people. But like it's a little bit easier when like you're listening to something with an open back, unlike these, because
True.
then you're not just like, ooh, and also your dog can talk to you. Like it's an alienated thing if you're not careful. But when you're on an airplane, they're totally the best thing that's ever happened. So like,
Right.
you know, I'm not like yeah, maybe I'm a relativist. I don't know.
You're a deep listener on planes too. It's just like, no, man, I'm trying to get in on that the engine roar, you know. I want to hear
But
that
open
timbre.
back,
Open
like
back.
open back, little Robert Ashley earlier stuff,
All
like
right.
pre-opera, unparalleled, so good.
With the hum, just the violent hum of the 727
Yeah.
behind you, you know.
I mean,
I
sometimes
mean,
Mari's making like a hum under a movie I'm watching. It's totally sick, you know?
Liz, you want to wrap it with the last question as our kind of like universal one that we ask
yeah,
everybody?
I kind of wanted to. There were like two questions I was hoping we could wrap with actually.
Okay.
Like, one being just the question of, we kind of covered this in the earlier conversation, but like how you learn about new music, because I think oftentimes that's a question that comes up when sort of trying to, yeah, like, encourage listening beyond like the sort of normative digital platforms. People are like, well, how do you find out about new music? So I'd love to hear, yeah, how you find out about new music, or like how you build your queue of like what you're going to listen to next or whatever. And then, yeah, our last question, what does it mean to you to be a critical listener?
Perfect, Bo. I find out about, yeah, how to find out about new music. It's just talking to people. You just have to talk to people. Like, I love online digging, and I'll do it until the day that the internet stops working for me again, which is probably going to be after this call. But like, then again, when it works forever, who knows what I'm saying? But I've been talking for like 2 hours straight now, so we're really like, yay.
It's
But
good.
it is good. But yeah, like talk to people and see what they're listening. Like my friend Shane, I was talking to him and I was really into like Cajun music and Rusty and Doug Kershaw because it sounds psychedelic to me. And he was like, "That's amazing. It reminds me of this," and like shows me like some like DJ. He shows me like Powder, the DJ, and I'm like, honestly, I almost don't see it, but I really see it. And so
Yeah.
a person will always give you an intel into what makes the music that you like good if they also know about it. That will be something you can't find on your own. And that's something that I love about like record curators from like the 80s and 90s independent scene. Like people like being in a band with Kramer is a trip because like the people he's played with and also the people on Shimmy Disc are like not people that would be found together in an algorithm. It's just not possible. Like it's not like, oh, here's the common thing. Like the common thing is either people or like how they sound or how they feel, and like how they sound in a way that's not like aggregated from like data. It's like just how that they sound to him. And so you are getting stuff that like has someone's stamp of approval, which like gatekeeping is its own complicated situation, but like it is something that's at least with a human touch compared to just like, oh, it has a guitar with a shitload of reverb on it. You're probably
Right.
gonna like it because it's, to me that sounds like beach house or whatever, which is like
Right.
such a crude rendering of like what music is made of,
That's the norm of playlisting now, is like, what is beast mode gym playlist. My favorite thing to check in on is what is the official Spotify workout playlist looking like, and it's just like a who's who of just like pump it up, get ready to work out type of tracks, and it's just like the distance, social distance between the various things that have nothing to do with each other. It is a robot put this together based probably on decibel output, right?
Yeah, like just talk to your friends. And if your friends don't know anything new about music, imagine that you're like somebody who knows a lot about music and do what they would do. Like so much of life is just like the adopting of performances that don't suit you. This is one that might. You could be
Yep.
like, "Hey, I'm on Discogs because I really love this Rosalia record who's playing the cello on this thing and she, you know, what and like that's like the internal version of it, and then you tell somebody, "Hey, the cellist from this record is actually this person." And then they were on this one record from like whatever, and then the other person like 50% of the time will be like, "I don't know that," and then the other 50 will be like, "I do know that, I hate it." And then you have a discussion about why you hate it, and then all of a sudden you realize why you like other stuff better. So if you're talking to people, it just feels good. And if you're just like listening to like a received playlist from like someone you don't know, if it's a cool person, like in the sense like they're actually digging around, like the gentleman from like Dollar Country or like the Mississippi Records people or like whatever,
Yeah.
like that, there's like certain heads that you can trust that you don't personally know, and that's great. But if you're just like going for a streaming services version of what some reality looks like, you're probably going to be left feeling shitty and you won't know why. So if you just like follow down the thing that you love, like we were talking about earlier, it's better. And it's especially better if your friend can tell you why they think you love it, you know because then you get to
Music
know
is
each other
social.
better. Yeah, music is social.
Oof.
Music is social. Also, shout out to Dollar Country and Mississippi Records. I have
Oh yeah.
cassettes by both of those and love them so much.
Same. God tier.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Should we dive into our last question?
Yes,
Yeah.
diving.
Wendy, what does it mean to you to be a critical listener? Trademark.
Okay. It's like the first time I've been nervous actually because you said it so slow.
Brrr. Nick, put in some drum roll there.
Oh no. Critical listener. Critical condition. I sound like a slam poet trying to figure out what I'm about to say. Like
Yeah.
critical. What is critical? Um, I think a lot when people say stuff about critics, like people don't make statues of critics. And the thing is, like, some of the people that you think of as writers are actually critics. Sorry. And I think that like I try to approach everything in my life with like some level of care to like how I personally might interpret it and like how I imagine it was interpreted if it's not like in a circumstance that's like my lived experience, like how it might have been reached. And like I also think that people think of critics as like maybe they shouldn't be interpreting something for you, but I think that like the way that critics encounter things, like when it's done in good faith, which is like I actually think more times than not, like they're trying to figure out like what something's doing, you know? And I think, you know, I'm lucky because I'm a musician and I can like make the music that I do based on the things that I'm thinking about the music I encounter. Like I can make that criticism like in a field that isn't just writing or isn't just teaching. Like I can, as if there's something called just writing or just teaching, you know?
Right.
Like I'm trying to make music based on the way that I hear music because I love music. Like I see myself in that kind of like Sparks Ween lineage of like people who enjoy music making music about enjoying music, you know. Even if it's not self-consciously a genre play, like it's informed by shit and I like that. I don't believe that people make music in a vacuum. I think that if they did, it would be interesting in a John Cage vacuum way, but also kind of sad because like I make music because my friend Shane thinks that something is cool,
Yeah.
you know, or I make music because like I want to talk to people and band practice is like a really cool way to talk to people and specifically talk to people about solving the problems that I solve in my own songwriting practice when I'm alone. And so like if I'm conceiving of myself as a critical listener, which to be totally honest, I actually haven't, like I would probably be like thinking like, how do I understand this? You know, like I want to listen to things with the greatest understanding because I think that when people don't listen to each other with understanding, like the world looks like this. Like, and if people just accept things as they are, they use good slang in bad ways, you know, like, or they use things as shorthand that actually have their own meaning. And so when I'm being a
Yeah.
critical listener, it's just I'm trying to see things from as many sides as I can because I love it. And I think like when you're critical, like when you're a so-called hater, or if you're just trying to appraise or understand, appraise is a weird word, like a work of art, like a piece of music, if you're like really earnestly trying to understand it, that's a work of love. Even if you do end up hating it, it's because you're loving something that you think that the thing isn't really totally achieving. And so
Mm.
a critical listener is just like another word for a lover, probably,
Wow.
is my theory. Yeah.
That's
I love that. I'm also hearing like, that it means, like listening with also like a sense of questioning. It's kind of
Yeah.
what I was getting from that.
Yeah,
intention,
like
seeking context, you know?
yeah, like if you don't understand something, like either it doesn't want to be understood, which is totally reasonable. Sometimes that's like the best thing in the world. Or like, yeah, maybe there's something about you that you don't understand, not to sound like I'm being harsh about it, but like if you don't, I don't know, it's not like you have to like everything, but like if you don't understand what something's going for, it might just not be reaching that for you. And it also might not be clear in its intention for the way that you understand it, but it also might just be beyond you. And I think a critical listener is somebody who's not daunted by that. Like, I think the music world is incredibly broad and like I feel like I know a lot, but then when I talk to my friend Steve from Editrix, the bassist, or when I talk to Mari or when I talk to Ryan, they know everything about music. They're like serious crate digger people and like they follow, they're like better, they're deeper heads than I am, I think. And I feel like I know a lot, but they know more. And the ways that we border each other, it's like totally inspiring, but broad. So when I think about them, I think about like their critical listening and it's like they can hate on stuff, but they're usually doing it because like they want to find the thing that will make them feel something real. And so that's why I'm kind of like the theory behind it is one of love. Like you're trying to find the thing that you can love. And the great thing about music is like you can kind of love all of it if your ears are wide enough and if your heart's open enough.
Wendy Eisenberg, self-titled, Joyful Noise. By the time this episode's out, it'll be freshly out there. Go cop it. Thank you so much.
This is a joy.
Thank you for tuning in to the Critical Listening Podcast. The show was written and created by Liz Pelly and Max Alper and produced and engineered by Nick Zanka. That's me. You can support the show by joining the Patreon at patreon.com/criticallistening, where you'll have early access to episodes before they hit the public platforms, as well as our Discord community. Our theme song is the track Talk to Me by the band Eraser, and this episode highlighted tracks from our guest Wendy Eisenberg's self-titled album, out now on Joyful Noise Records.